اقرأ كتاب الله ترق جنانه وتنل عظيم الأجر والغفران.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilma. Allahumma faqihna fid din. So inshallah, in this lesson we will be covering certain fundamental concepts of Arabic grammar. So I advise that you pause this video, grab yourself a pen and a piece of paper if you really want to benefit from this video, inshallah. So we see in Arabic, every noun, that is every ism, can either be mudhakkar, masculine, or mu'annath, feminine. Now this is in relation to gender. And when it comes to quantity, it is divided into three categories. It could be wahid, tasniya, or jam. Wahid is singular, tasniya is dual, and jam is plural. Now, to keep this lesson precise and brief, let us start off by explaining using examples. Having said that, let me take the word Muslim, something that we are all familiar with, in order to explain certain concepts. Now, as mentioned before, each noun can either be a mudhakkar, a masculine, or it could be mu'annas, a feminine. And one of the obvious signs that you could use to differentiate between the mudhakkar and the mu'annas is to observe whether ta marbuta is present or not. Now, if the last letter of the word has a ta marbuta, most of the time it refers to the feminine mu'annas. For an example, muslimun refers to a male Muslim, whereas muslimatun refers to a female Muslim. Mu'minun refers to a male believer, and mu'minatun refers to a female believer. Zalimun is mudhakkar, and the mu'annath is zalimatun. Muhsinun is mudhakkar, and muhsinatun is mu'annath. Kafirun is mudhakkar, and kafiratun is mu'annas. Talking about the example that we just looked at, that is muslimun, muslimatun, mu'minun, mu'minatun, we can clearly see that the presence of ta marbuta is a big sign that shows that a particular word is mu'annas and not mudhakkar. If you have understood this little concept, then alhamdulillah, you have understood 1/3 of this lesson. We will move on to the second concept of this lesson, that is to do with quantity, that is wahid, tasni'a, and jam. And before we look at this, actually we have to look at another concept, that is the concept of states of the nouns, the state of the isms. Now, every ism can fall under three categories in terms of its state. It could be rafa, it could be nasab, or it could be jar. Rafa is indicated by al-dhamma, nasab is indicated by a fatha, and jar is indicated by a kasra. Before we understand as to what exactly is rafa, nasab, or jar, we have to figure out a way to remember that rafa always is indicated by a dhamma, and nasab by a fatha, and jar by a kasra. This is just a side point, ways in which you can remember these terms and link it to whatever they are related to. When you look at the word rafa, the ra, the curved line, it resembles the shape of a dhamma, doesn't it? Dhamma looks like a slightly modified version of a ra. When it comes to nasab and jar, we see in nasab the noon has a dot above, and fatha is also a sign that is present above a letter. And when it comes to jar, we see that the dot is present below the letter jim, and likewise kasra is also present below a letter. Now, this is just a tip as to how you can link different things to ensure that they really stay in your mind. Having said this, we will come to see what exactly is rafa, nasab, and jar. Rafa indicates the subject, that is the doer of the action, and nasab is the object, that is the receiver of the action which is done by the subject. So subject is the action and the object receives that action. And when it comes to jar, it usually is used when it comes to a possessive relationship, or it could be a case that may be caused because of a presence of a preposition, because of the presence of a harf jar. So let's start off by looking at rafa, which is the subject. And like we have already learned, rafa is always indicated by a dhamma. Let's look at examples from the Quran to understand it. We see in Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. Khatama, he sealed, Allah, ala, upon, qulubihim, their hearts. So we see in this little statement that Allah is a subject. Allah is doing the action of sealing the hearts. We see that Allah has a dhamma. Just by looking at a dhamma on the word Allah, we should know that that is the rafa, that is the marfu, that is the subject. Now let's look at another example, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 15, Allahu yastahzi'u bihim. Allah mocks at them. So who is mocking? Allah is mocking. So what do you think is the state of Allah? He is the subject, he is the rafa. And as discussed before, rafa is indicated by a dhamma. Now let's look at another statement. Khalaqullah, Allah created. Who is the doer? Allah, because he is doing the action of creating something. So Allah, which is the subject, gets a dhamma. Let's look at the second concept, that is the nasab. The nasab is when something is an object, when something is receiving the action. For an example, in Surah Baqarah in ayah number 9, we see the example of yukhadi'un Allah. Who is doing the action? They. Allah is not the doer here. Allah is not doing the action. They are doing the action. Allah is the object. So Allah gets a fatha. Now let's take another example. For an example, خَلَقَ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ. Allah created mankind. So mankind is the object. So mankind gets a nas, gets a fatha. So with that we have done rafa and nasab. Now let's move on to jar. Jar, majroor. Jar, this concept takes action in two cases. One is when harf jar is present, when a preposition is present, or in a possessive relationship. That is the relationship between an object and an owner. Object is called the mudaf and owner is called the mudaf ilay. Now most of the time we know the term mudaf and mudaf ilay, and the problem arises when we don't know to differentiate between mudaf and mudaf ilay. As in we are confused, we don't know if mudaf is actually the owner or mudaf is the object which is owned. And we don't know whether the mudaf ilay is actually the owner or the object that is owned. Now again, another side point, another tip I would like to give. For an example, let's say a person owns a lock and a key. So the lock is an object by itself and the key is an object by itself. It's a single object. Likewise, we see mudaf, that is the object, is a single word. But when it comes to mudaf ilay, it is two words. So when it comes to the owner, he's not only going to own the lock, but he is going to own the lock and the key. So he has two things. The term that has two words, two parts, is actually the owner. Now I don't know if you really got this concept, but if you do get it and if this was helpful, alhamdulillah. Let's just move on. So mudaf is the object and mudaf ilay is the owner. Now the concept is very simple. Mudaf can get either a fatha or a kasra or a dhamma depending on the context of the sentence, whereas the mudaf ilay, the owner, always at all times gets a kasra unless he's mabni. Now for an example, let's say kitabullahi or baytullahi. We see that baytu, it is having a dhamma, whereas Allahi, house of Allah, Allah is the owner. Allah is getting a kasra. He is in the state of majroor. He is in the state of jar. Let's tweak this statement. Now let's say it is fi baytillahi. So we see Allah again is like in the house of Allah, right? That's the translation. So we see Allah again remains the possessor, the owner. So the mudaf ilay, he gets a kasra. Whereas we see the word bayt, initially in baytullahi, bayt had a dhamma, it was baytu. But here, because of the presence of fi, it has become fi baytillahi. And why is this? This is because fi is a harf jar. And as I mentioned before, jar could be because of two relationships. One is the mudaf mudaf ilay, the object owner relationship, and the other thing is because of harf jar. Harf jar are prepositions. For an example, fi, min, ila, ala, an, bi, li, and so on. So whenever harf jar is present, the word that follows it gets a kasra. For an example, fi baytillahi, ilal masjidi. You don't say ilal masjidu, you say ilal masjidi. Why do you say masjidi? Because ila is a harf jar and it has had an effect on the i'rab of masjid, which by default usually all nouns, all isms are in the rafa state. But because of the harf jar, it has acted on the word, the ism masjid, and therefore masjidu becomes masjidi. So in a nutshell, we see that all isms can be divided into three states, that is rafa, nasab, and jar. Rafa is the subject and it is indicated by a dhamma, and nasab is the object which is indicated by a fatha, and jar is either the mudaf mudaf ilay relationship, that is the object owner relationship, or it is due to the presence of a harf jar, and this is indicated by a kasra. So alhamdulillah, with this we come to the conclusion of the part 1 of this particular chapter, and inshallah the link for the part 2 of this particular chapter can be found in the description box below. So with this we'll conclude. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.